Hello and welcome to the Federal. My name is Shreyas. There has been a lot of debate over censorship of films releasing in theaters and OTTs. Filmmakers are willing to touch upon sensitive subjects, including sex, as they have an audience, but the censor board is yet to open up to such topics. The latest in the news is Akshay Kumar's upcoming film, Oh My God 2, which is reportedly stuck with the censor board with 20 cuts as it deals with the sensitive issue of sex education. To talk more about it, we have with us filmmaker Mr. RS Prasanna, who was one among the first filmmakers in Tamil cinema to tackle a sexual problem on the big screen. His Tamil film Kalyana Samayal Saadham was a super hit, and it was remade in Hindi as Shubh, Mangal, Saavdhan, which also turned out to be a box office hit. So how did he manage to pull it off? What are the challenges to make a film on such topics? Well, let's talk to the man himself. Mr. Prasanna, thank you for joining the show with Federal.
Hi, Shreyas. Thank you for such a lovely and very kind introduction. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Mr. Prasanna, to begin with, when you made Kalyana Samayal Saadham way back in 2013, why did you choose to make a film on erectile dysfunction and impotency?
Well, I remember that, speaking about this at the Rajiv Masan round table with Mr. Rajamouli right next to me. And I said that when you have a very big filmmaker, when you have very big budgets, you talk about being a Bahubali. And then when you have a very young, struggling filmmaker and you have almost next to zero budget or very less budget, then you talk about an impotent man, So sometimes in the, David versus Goliath reality of being a first-time filmmaker, you do choose courageous topics because you're young, you don't know much about whether anyone is even going to watch this movie ultimately, where are the different arrows going to come from. So therefore, a lot of the first-time movies are far more courageous and honest. So I think 10 years ago when I made Kalyana Samayal Saadham, I think I would put it down to my naivete and my youth. And I was just thinking that I was making a film which will bring a lot of discussions and open up a topic which I know for a fact is lying under the table and it's been brushed under the carpet. So because I'm a new guy, this will bring a lot of discussion around my film, right? And obviously it was a topic which is very close to my heart too. So I thought that was a good first film to make. It was bold enough, it was courageous enough, and but also it had a sensitivity and an honesty which I was banking on that people would connect with.
But how did the censor board react to the film's core topic back then? I mean, what were the challenges you faced with the censor and how did you tackle them?
Actually, Shreyas, I must say I was very lucky, or I had a very pleasant experience. A lot of people might have different experiences, but I don't know if I was lucky, I was blessed. I had a very healthy discussion with the censor board, both in Tamil Nadu and when it came to Bombay. And I think that also, very practically, I think both the set of people started off by liking the film. I think that really helped. So they came from a place of really liking the film, and the discussion was only the certification. Like I remember in both the places, they started saying that it's a very good film and it's a very honest film. I think they're also at the end of the day human beings. They're also at the end of the day audiences, and they could see the intent of the filmmaker in the film, right? So there was no exploitative shots of females, or there was no, and so I think for it really helped that the intent was very evident on the screen, that the movie is trying to entertain while opening up a discussion. The question came to the certification. So they were starting off saying that it has to be, an A certificate because the topic is adulthood. And I very humbly and very respectfully, without hurting them and respecting the process, I suppose, I made a pitch. So, sometimes you see like in the climax of movies where the guy comes and he speaks in front of the court and he gives a lamba choda speech. So I gave a speech and I spoke as to why an adolescent who's turning, let's say, a teenager, right? must see such movies. Being a parent myself, I said that I'm not going to let my that time my kid was hardly, I think that time my kid was just born. So I said, I'm not going to let my kid watch it before a teenage, but I think a teenager must watch it. So why don't you consider a UA, which is kind of like your PG-13 rating? And we had a very healthy discussion. There were some people who agree. There were some people who had a very healthy debate. They had their own point of view. I guess I just prayed to God and said, whatever the result comes, I'll be happy. And but I think in both the cases, we had a very healthy discussion. And I must say that I went in with a lot of fear, we were all very afraid, because the censor body is sometimes, can be going against what you want. But in both the cases, they were also happy, we were also happy. And I remember in the case of the Hindi film, one of the senior censor board members actually came out and said it was actually one of the rare cases where the censor board process was a dialogue between a filmmaker and a censor board, and not like two enemies, talking. And he said, you were also very respectful, and so were we. So I said, maybe I was just very happy and lucky to have a certain mood at that time. But I would say I have been I had a very different experience of healthy discussion.
Now, Mr. Prasanna, we're talking about this because of a film starring Akshay Kumar, which is Oh My God 2. It stuck with the revising committee, and reports say they've asked for about 20 cuts and mutes. So what are your thoughts when you hear when the revising committee of the censor board asks for 20 cuts?
See, Shreyas, I would not want to comment upon anybody else's film, honestly, because it is none of my authority talk else's opinion, experience. And I'm sure that, but there is an interesting thought that we can discuss, which is, I think what happens is, as long as the process is transparent, as long as there is a debate, and as long as there is a understanding. See, what I understood from this process, and perhaps where younger filmmakers can possibly benefit from this discussion, is what happens usually in my experience is that they will tell you that if you want a certificate, then blah blah blah. If you want us to give you a slightly larger acceptable certificate like a UA, then you have to cut these 5 scenes, 6 scenes. So that's what happens usually, and that's what happened in my case. So let me talk about that. So one is usually prepared for, like for example, if you are having a certificate for a movie, for let us say violence, or a particular word that you've used, or for say, for example, nudity or whatever, right? Then when you say that, okay, I don't want an A certificate because it probably restricts my business, then they may say that, okay, then remove these five to six things, and then we'll give you a UA. Or down, we are going to give you a UA. If you remove these 4-5 things, we'll give you a U certificate. Usually, in my little experience, that's what happens. Now, again, in this particular case, I don't know what's happening, and I would not want to comment on any other film.
No, the reason I asked you this question is because, as per reports, it is being said that the film Oh My God 2 deals with sex education. There's a bit of topics related to masturbation and the LGBT community, while taking a religious angle. So do you think it's a good idea to mix sex and religious sentiments? So that's the reason we thought, we'll just ask you this question.
Well, I'll only answer the last part of your question, because the rest of it is based on reports and assumptions. So I do not want to get into that. Good question. Should religion and sex be talked in the same breath? Why not? That's my personal opinion, right? Because I made a film on erectile dysfunction, and many may not know it because it was more a private screening kind of a thing. But I followed it up by making a film on Swami Chinmayananda, who's a saint, so Hindu saint. So I remember the Hindu had put a beautiful article and an interview with me saying that quite an interesting choice. You went from a movie like Kalyana, Samayal, Saadham to doing a small English film on a biopic of a Hindu saint. And the topic, the headline was very catchy. It said from impotence to spirituality. So yeah, I mean, I have in that sense dealt with both, but I do understand that in a country, in any country, every country has its holy cows. India's holy cow is a holy cow by itself, literally, and we have so many other holy cows. But every country has its own social realities, and every government also grapples with that. So that is a reality. And when we are making mainstream pictures, we have to constantly engage with it. Like every story I make in my own head, forget censorship, forget government. There is another censor sitting in my head, which is my audience. As a mainstream filmmaker, I also constantly, my theoretical audience, let's say the same guys who like Shubh Mangal, will they find something else that I do a little too edgy, a little too uncomfortable, you know? So it also depends on everyone is guessing, honestly, you know, everyone is just guessing until the film actually comes out. So to answer your question, I feel today we are living in a world where we have, like I said, porn is available freely. You know, we have more of OTT shows which are giving you a lot of talks of sex. I think we are all as filmmakers having our own political opinions and positions on this, and we all do self-censorship in very many ways, you know. And so I don't know, like in this particular case, I would not want to comment on it, but I think, yeah, if you ask me theoretically, can sex be talked, can religion be talked, I said both should be talked. Both can be very beautiful things, and both can be very painful things and very, very, very ugly things too. You know, sex can be rape, and religion can be religious extremism and riots. So yeah, both are beautiful things, and both can be um, causing a lot of issues. I can understand that.
So I'm
Am I
assuming
being
that
too
you are
diplomatic?
aware of the recent controversy with regard to Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. You know, the government has asked the censor board to get a particular sex scene in the film deleted as it contains a line from the Bhagavad Gita. Now, do you think it's possible for a scene to be deleted from all the entire, you know, all the screens after a worldwide release? Do you think it's possible?
Well, if the, I suppose, I don't know the realities of that film, but I do understand that Oppenheimer was, you know, a very. I've seen videos of Oppenheimer where he quotes the Bhagavad Gita, uh, and I don't know the exact. I've only read about. Apparently, he's bonking someone when they're reading the Bhagavad Gita. So I don't know if that really Oppenheimer did that, or is it Mr.
Fiction.
Christopher Nolan being a great filmmaker, you know, took a certain liberty. But if I were to place a film scene like that, I would be, you know, a little cautious of it, because, you know, not for any political or any other reason, because my own father, my own mother, my own relatives, you know, for whom these things might be a little too much to palate, you know. So I don't know, but if really he was bonking someone while reading a religious text, I don't know if that happened either.
Going back to the topic of sex education, Mr. Prasanna, now how
Yeah.
effective is a medium like cinema in portraying important topics like sex education without being preachy? I mean, during our discussion, you mentioned about how passionate you are about sex education. So, how do you think cinema can help in conveying the right message about sex education?
Oh, that's a great question, Shez. I think cinema is a beautiful medium, which because it's storytelling, right? So stories are an outstandingly powerful way to touch people's hearts. So when you touch people's, and you may be touching a raw nerve instead of touching a heart too, that is also fine. That's also part of cinema. They all have different tastes, but when you touch a person's heart, you reach to his or her brain. Am I right? So what happens is cinema is so beautiful. Like, for example, I often use the example of Tare Zameen Par of Mr. Amir Khan, right? Until that movie came, we did not very popularly discuss about dyslexia, learning difficulties. You know, one movie comes, makes you cry in the theater, and suddenly all the parents are little kinder to the children. All the children are like opening up. I mean, is that not an amazing thing, right? So I'll tell you, when I did Kalyana, Samayal, Saadham, I honestly never thought it will have the impact that it had. I'm really blessed. I got a message, so many messages from couples, you know, saying that you have opened up conversations, right? And that really touched me. One girl messaged me saying that I could not marry the guy I fell in love with, but your movie gave me the confidence that even in an arranged marriage setup, I might actually find love. So thank you for that. So I think movies are extremely powerful, and when once you touch people's hearts, and then you start a conversation, right? So I really enjoy movies which touch people's heart and start conversations. And sex is definitely one of the things. For example, if I were to now, like I said, my boys are 10 and 6. I think when, say, maybe 13, 14, whenever my wife and I decide to, have the birds and the bees talk with my elder son, I will first think of some movie, some book, some story, to come to my aid, because I think movies are extremely beautiful. Vicky Donor, again, a very strong, entertaining movie, which was actually giving me the confidence to do Kalyana, Samayal, right? Again, it opened up Dam Laga Ke Haisha, opened up conversations, So I think movies are extremely, which is why also that I feel that people will watch the movie anyhow. Whatever you try to do, they will go out and seek the movie and watch it. And I think it's very important. It's very important.
Prasanna, today, OTTs are making films on sex-related issues, including fulfilling women's desires like Lust Stories and Ji Karda. Now, what do you feel about the kind of revolutions that is taking place on OTTs?
I feel the OTT as a medium is extremely powerful, Shreyas, because when I say OTT, there is no single OTT. It's a medium, right? And what it does is it as a storyteller, it brings me, like I am having the Zoom call with you, right? It's bringing me in direct conversation with you, right? You don't have to go to a theater to book a ticket. I don't have to go. So it's directly. So it brings the gap between people, and OTT is fabulous in that way, And I feel we are in the very nascent. I think OTT is going through adolescence. That's my opinion. I think it's a teenager that's trying to rebel against its parent also. So the OTT will try out a lot of things, and eventually, I feel that it will. The people will start selecting, the diversification of stuff. Say, I keep constantly saying, if you want today titillation and porn, it's freely available. I don't have to watch an Amazon show or I keep talking to studio execs also here that I do an Amazon show to get my quota of titillation. I can get it free on the net. Am I right? So then why is it that a person will want to come to an OTT for a long form content? It again has to be the same old good story, good characters who I fall in love with in various shades. So I am very excited with OTT as a medium. I myself am developing long form content, and I think especially topics like sex. When it is coming through OTT, there is that awkwardness goes off. It's just largely a private viewing, But I don't understand one thing, that yes, people expecting that OTT may, you should not have. I mean, like, you have a choice to watch something, right? Why are you going and downloading an app, switching on a movie, a show called Sex Education, and watching it with your grandmother and grandfather, and then saying that it's offensive? That is a little silly.
I'm sure you might have noticed that mainstream Hindi film actors, especially female actors, are also part of films revolving around sex-related issues. Why isn't a similar revolution taking place on the big screen?
There is a certain nature for a time and place. Okay, so when you, let's say, talk to your friend at 2 a.m. and then you're very deeply conversing about, let's say, something personal, you will talk in a whisper and you will talk intimately. You'll be very vulnerable, right? But if you're in a group setting with 300 people, you will not talk certain topics. That is just a construct of communication itself. So I have never seen this as a moral policing or as a political or a censorship issue at all. That is there. But for me, as a filmmaker and a student of communication, I myself, if I'm sitting in front of 3,000 strangers, I will definitely try to maintain a certain public decorum while talking. I will not use certain words which I might use in public. So simple stuff like that, right? So I think, why is it that you're more comfortable in an OTT platform talking? Because you're also aware that there is a certain choosing that's happening at the other end. You're assuming that it's an aware audience. They have seen a trailer, they know it's an A-rated show, and then they're coming and watch, right? So I think that it's a totally different conversation. It's for example, even the way I shoot something for OTT will change, right? If I'm predominantly making a show for OTT, I will not go for extreme long shots, and I will go for more close-ups, more, the form of it is different.
We're coming to the end of the show, but then I still have two questions left. So one,
Sure.
with regard to, talking about, filmmakers taking up such topics. So you think filmmakers have, self-censorship is important, is what you're trying to say when it comes to making films
No,
on
that's not
sexual
what I'm saying.
issues.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay. But then you mentioned that you have to be careful while, reach when you're making certain films, mixing
No, I didn't
things.
say that either.
What
I
is
didn't say that
important?
either. I didn't say that either. I told you that what is my perspective, and I'm not advocating anything, because it's not fair, Shreyas. Prasanna will make films what Prasanna makes, and Anurag Kashyap should be free to make the films he makes. Who am I to tell him to be careful or to be? I mean, we live in a free country, so I don't advocate. I'm just sharing with you my opinion on it, because I think we live in exciting times. We have OTT. We're all learning, But all I was wanting to communicate was that I also understand, and this is my personal opinion. I also understand, like, while I'm driving on the road, I'll have to adhere to certain rules set by the government, whether I like them or not. I also understand that there is a censor body who I have to deal with, whether I like it, whether I hate it. Now, we are also a country which debates. We are also a country which we should debate whether that censor body should do this rule, that rule, and we should be debating on all those. But I am trying to take a position. I am trying to explain my position, because there are a lot of filmmakers who do very strongly believe that there should be no censorship at all.
Even on
And I respect their
OTTs,
views.
do you think the government trying to take control of OTTs, censorship on OTTs? What's your thought on that?
I told you, I don't think in OTT it is something that OTT may censorship does not make sense to me personally, because I would assume that OTT is a far more intimate medium,
Personally,
and it is like me logging onto a YouTube video. How is that any different from me watching an Amazon show, or how is it any different from me buying a book?
correct.
Where I understand that when you put up a public play, see, I can buy any book, but when I'm putting a public play, I have to get police permission. I have to get, which I'm willing to understand, because the government is trying to secure the security of our nation. I'm not debating that at all. So I'm giving you an answer which probably may look like a little confusing, but actually it is coming from understanding the fact that we live in a country, we need rules and regulations, and I respect that. But however, whether those are required for OTT is something that I'm willing to debate, because I don't see the need for that. I don't see the justification for that, because it's essentially a private viewing experience.
Finally, tell us about your next project, which seems to be a remake of a Spanish film. Now, there are reports which says Amir Khan would play the role, or then this, he suggested Salman Khan. So what's really happening with your next project? What is it?
I don't talk about my next project, Shreyas. I'm very sorry, because that is something I've maintained for the last 5 years. So when it is at a stage which is ready to be announced, only then I talk.
Okay. All right, Mr. Prasanna. Thank you for joining on the show. But I just wanted to ask you one last question. Are you working on OTT? Are you working on OTTs as well? A rom-com?
Yeah, I'm very excited, Shreyas. Yeah, not only rom-com. I think I'm not working on anything that is, again, nothing that is at a stage where it will be announced, but because I'm very excited with the medium. Yeah, I think the medium is something that can actually touch people's hearts without any what do I say, community viewing experience. I am, but a little bit I can talk about. I am trying to make whatever I'm working on. I'm trying to bring a certain feel good and a certain hopeful and a certain brighter touch to things, because I constantly keep joking with my friends and studio execs in the OTT side also, that hey, why are we making such dark things here? Everything is dark. But the OTT shows I have enjoyed, of course, I've enjoyed very dark things also. But I think there is a requirement for people around me for watching something which gives hope. Like I'm a big sucker for Malgudi Days, for example. I'm a big sucker for Byomkesh Bakshi on these are all the golden era of television, which I'm sure you also grew up watching. So I am looking forward to creating something in that space, that which I don't think a lot of it is happening currently.
We've come to the end of the show, Mr. Prasanna. Thank you for joining us on this special show. Hope to talk to you and interview you once again pretty soon.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.